You live as if you are outside your own system, as if life happens around you, not through you, as if you were a spectator to your own results. That illusion has cost you years. You call it bad timing, you call it circumstance, you call it limitation. But what you are really experiencing is separation from your own structure. You move as if the forces that shape your reality are somewhere else, in other people, in money, in luck, in the world. That belief is the reason your progress feels slow, your power feels distant, your control feels partial. You are not blocked, you are fragmented. You learned to see yourself as a piece, not as a system, not as a source, not as a center of cause. And because of that, you wait, you react, you adjust, you adapt, but you rarely command. Your mind behaves like a receiver, not a transmitter, like an object, not a force, like something that is shaped, not something that shapes. That is not humility, that is unconscious submission. You were never designed to exist as an external observer of your own life. You were designed to operate inside the law that governs everything, but you act as if that law is separate from you. That contradiction is the wound. You want control, but you behave as if control lives outside your reach. You want clarity, but you treat your mind as something that reacts instead of something that generates. You want power, but you look for it in conditions, not in structure. That creates tension, that creates exhaustion, that creates a constant sense of almost ready, almost aligned, almost there. Almost is the language of separation. When you see yourself as separate from the system, your efforts feel heavy. When you see yourself as separate from cause, your actions feel uncertain. When you see yourself as separate from law, your life becomes negotiation instead of command. You begin to move carefully, cautiously, as if permission is required, and slowly, without noticing, you accept a smaller position inside your own existence. Not because you are weak, but because your structure is divided. You were taught to believe that power is external, that intelligence is outside, that order comes from something higher than you. So you look up, you look outward, you look for confirmation. And the more you look, the less you feel centered. You become dependent on circumstances to feel stable, dependent on outcomes to feel capable, dependent on results to feel real. That is not growth, that is conditional existence. You are functioning as if you are separate from the mechanism that produces your reality, as if your mind is a passenger inside a larger machine. But your mind is not inside the system, it is part of the system. And the moment you forget that, your life becomes reactive. You stop initiating, you start responding. You stop shaping, you start managing. You stop commanding, you start hoping. That is why your potential feels distant, not because it is missing, but because it is mispositioned. You placed it outside yourself. You say, when things change, I will change. When I have more, I will act differently. When I feel ready, I will move. That is backward. That is the logic of a mind that believes it is an effect, and effects do not lead, they follow. Your frustration does not come from lack of ability. It comes from the silent understanding that you are not operating at the level you could. You sense it. You feel it in moments of clarity, when you realize your reactions are predictable, when you notice your patterns repeat, when you see the same emotional structures returning. You do not lack awareness. You lack structural unity. Your mind is divided between what it is and what it believes it is allowed to be. That division weakens your authority over your own existence. You say you want alignment,
But alignment requires recognizing that you are not separate from the laws that govern action, thought, and result. Right now, you live as if the universe is a stage and you are a character waiting for the right scene. That is a trained position, not a natural one. Your real position is central, not peripheral. But that truth feels dangerous because it removes excuses, it removes delay, it removes the comfort of blaming environment. If the system is outside you, then failure is understandable. If the system is within you, then stagnation becomes responsibility. That is why the mind resists unity, because unity means you are not small, you are not marginal, you are not a side effect, you are a point of law in motion. But you have been trained to see yourself as a fragment. So you move carefully, you hesitate, you wait for permission. You measure yourself against others, against conditions, against time. You shrink your decisions to match your belief of limitation. And over time, you normalize a version of yourself that operates below its structural capacity. That is the wound, not emotional, not personal, structural. You do not suffer because life is unfair. You suffer because you are operating as if you are disconnected from the law that generates your life. You were never separate from the whole, but you learned to act as if you were. And everything you call confusion, delay, and lack of direction comes from that single fracture, the belief that you are outside what governs you. That belief is not innocent. It programs your posture, your choices, your expectations, your patience with mediocrity. It makes waiting feel normal. It makes hesitation feel wise. It makes reaction feel natural. But it is not natural. It is trained. And as long as that training remains unconscious, your power remains fragmented. You do not need motivation. You do not need encouragement. You do not need belief. You need structural recognition. You are not in the system. You are of the system. And until that becomes internal truth, your life will feel like it is happening beside you, not through you.
The cage. What you experience is not chaos. It is structure operating without your awareness. Your reactions feel personal, but they are programmed. Your habits feel chosen, but they are rehearsed. Your limitations feel natural, but they are learned. You were not born reacting this way. You were conditioned into it. Before you had opinions, you had exposure. Before you had identity, you had imitation. Before you had choice, you had pattern. That is how the cage forms. You think you decide, but most of what you call decision is response. Response to memory, response to fear, response to expectation, response to repetition. Your mind was trained to operate inside a narrow range of behavior, not by force, by normalization. What repeats becomes familiar. What becomes familiar feels safe. What feels safe becomes you. This is how personality is built, not by intention, by exposure. You learned what is possible by watching others hesitate. You learned what is realistic by observing limits. You learned what is acceptable by absorbing reaction. And without noticing, your nervous system adopted those boundaries as law. So now you do not respond to reality. You respond to the memory of what you were taught reality is. That is the cage. You believe your resistance comes from laziness. It does not. You believe your delay comes from fear. It does not. You believe your inconsistency comes from lack of discipline. It does not. Those are surface labels. They describe behavior. They do not explain structure. Your structure was built long before your conscious will had authority. You were taught when to pause, when to doubt, when to ask permission, when to shrink. Not verbally,
energetically, emotionally, through repetition. So now, when opportunity appears, your body hesitates before your mind reasons. When possibility shows up, your system contracts before your logic evaluates. When action is required, your nervous system searches for familiar limits, and you call that who you are. It is not who you are. It is what you were trained to maintain. Most people never escape this because the cage feels like identity. It feels personal. It feels permanent, but it is neither. It is conditioning. You think you avoid risk because you were careful. In truth, you avoid it because your system was trained to associate movement with instability. You think you delay because you want clarity. In truth, you delay because your structure learned that waiting is safer than initiating. You think you react because you are emotional. In truth, you react because your mind was trained to let external stimulus define internal motion. This is not weakness, it is programming. You were taught to experience yourself as an effect, not as a cause. So you wait for signals, for permission, for alignment, for confirmation. That waiting is not patience, it is structural submission. Your system learned that movement should follow safety, but safety was defined by repetition, not by truth.
So now, even when you intellectually understand something, your body resists it. Even when you see clarity, your actions stay small. Even when you feel capable, your behavior remains cautious. Because your structure does not obey logic, it obeys conditioning. That is why insight alone does not change your life, and motivation never lasts. Your internal architecture was shaped before your conscious self arrived. You were trained to adapt, not to initiate, to respond, not to command, to manage reality, not to generate it. This is why most people repeat their life in different forms. Same emotional patterns, same relational structure, same financial ceiling, same psychological posture. Different circumstances, same design. Not because they lack potential, but because their system has never been restructured. They try to change results without changing orientation. They try to improve behavior without touching the root. They try to think differently without correcting their position inside their own mental system. So nothing truly shifts. They blame trauma, society, personality, timing. These explanations comfort the ego, but they protect the cage. Because if the cause is external, then responsibility disappears. And if responsibility disappears, structure never changes. You were trained to believe that your mind reacts to life. That is the deepest illusion. Your mind does not react to life. It interprets and then generates response. But because that interpretation became automatic, you forgot it exists. So now your reactions feel natural, your limits feel logical, your hesitation feels reasonable. That is how a cage stays invisible. You believe you are choosing, but you are repeating. You believe you are deciding, but you are maintaining. You believe you are free, but your freedom is constrained by what your system already knows how to do, not what it could do, what it has been trained to do. And training does not disappear by will, it disappears by restructuring. Your current position is not the result of a single mistake. It is the outcome of a long sequence of small reinforcements. Reinforced hesitation, reinforced dependency, reinforced doubt, reinforced reaction. Your mind became efficient at staying within known boundaries. Efficiency is not freedom, it is optimization of pattern. And once a pattern stabilizes, it feels like reality. That is the danger. You stop questioning your internal posture. You start defending it. You call it being realistic.
You call it being cautious. You call it knowing yourself. But in truth, you are protecting a structure that was never consciously chosen. The cage is not emotional. It is mechanical. It does not hate you. It does not punish you. It simply repeats what it was taught until something introduces a new order. Until something reveals that your position in the system is not passive, it is causal, and that what you experience as fate is often nothing more than unconscious architecture at work.
The map. The structure you are inside was not discovered recently. It was mapped. Not as belief, not as spirituality, as mental law. William Walker Atkinson did not speak in inspiration. He spoke in mechanics. He described the mind as a system of vibration, direction, and cause, not as emotion, not as personality, as force. Thought vibration was not a metaphor. It was a functional description of how mental activity organizes experience. The Kybalion did not present philosophy, it presented structure. Mental science did not offer hope, it offered order. The sentence, "the all is in everything," was never mystical, it was architectural. It means this: there is no point in your life that is separate from the system that governs all points. No thought outside the mechanism of cause. No action outside the structure of law. No result outside the sequence that produced it. You are not observing the system, you are operating inside it. Your mind is not a container, it is a transmitter of direction. Your attention is not passive, it is positioning force. Your identity is not who you are, it is where your consciousness is anchored in the system. When William Walker Atkinson spoke of mental vibration, he was describing orientation. Where the mind is placed determines what sequence it activates. You were never broken, you were positioned unconsciously. You did not lack power, you lacked alignment with law. The moment you recognize that the all is in everything, you stop waiting for external permission. Because there is no outside source. Every condition you face is already inside the same structure you operate from. Every obstacle is part of the same law you generate through. You are not beneath the system, you are not above it, you are within it. And being within it means responsibility returns to you, not as guilt, as clarity. Your mind is not a victim of circumstance, it is a regulator of sequence. What you focus on organizes direction. What you accept defines boundary. What you repeat becomes structure. That is not belief, that is function. Atkinson called this mental causation, not to elevate thought, but to position it correctly. Thought is not hope, it is placement. Emotion is not power, it is reaction to placement. Action is not struggle, it is consequence of placement. Your life reflects not your desire, but your mental position inside the system. Once you see this, confusion dissolves. There is no chaos, there is no randomness, there is no hidden enemy.
There is only law operating with or without your awareness. The all is in everything means there is no external authority governing your inner direction. There is no separation between your consciousness and the structure of reality. There is no delay caused by fate, only positioning. When your mind is divided, your results are scattered. When your mind is unified, your results stabilize. Not magically, structurally. Atkinson did not teach manifestation, He described alignment. He did not teach success. He described coherence. He did not teach hope. He described law. Once you understand this, the cage loses power. Not because it disappears, but because it becomes visible. And what is visible can be repositioned. Your nervous system no longer commands your future. Your awareness commands your nervous system. Your conditioning no longer defines your ceiling. Your structure defines your range. You stop trying to fix outcomes. You start correcting placement. Where is your attention positioned? Where is your identity anchored? Where is your sense of cause located? Not outside, not in others, not in time, in you. And you is not personality. It is position inside law. This is why Atkinson emphasized control of thought, not to dominate emotion, but to establish authority over sequence. Once the mind is positioned correctly, behavior follows naturally. No force, no struggle, no hype, just alignment. You are not becoming powerful. You are recognizing where power was always operating from. You are not changing reality. You are changing your placement within its structure. That is why the ending is calm. Because nothing was missing, nothing was broken, nothing was stolen. You were unconscious of law, and now you are not. That is not motivation, that is order. Not promise, responsibility. Not excitement, stability. You leave with one conclusion: I was not unlucky. I was not weak. I was not damaged. I was unconscious of mental law. And awareness of law does not inspire, it stabilizes. That is the difference between confusion and structure.